Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Grandstand Gurus, the number one sports podcast on the Explosion Network. I am one of your hosts. My name is Jack Kruse. I'm joined this week by Ashley Hobley.
Hello, Jack.
And Ciaran Marchant.
Hi, Jack. How you going?
We're going okay. It's been one of those days. It's been an up and down day in the world of sport.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of happenings, a lot going on.
Anything emotional?
I did get, I have done a couple of times throughout the day. So, obviously, if you didn't know, Bob Murphy retired today. My favourite player of all time, my favourite sportsman of all time, a hero of mine, announced that he will not be playing on beyond this season. So, which was, bittersweet and sad and nice as well to sort of remember his career and all the things that he's achieved and the person that he's been. So, they had his press conference today, and I was just watching AFL 360, and he came on. They had a nice little package for him there. So it's been a day. It's definitely been a day.
Your mascara's running?
My mascara's running. No. There was no tears shed. I did. It was just. It's weird. Like your favorite players sort of leaving, and I don't really remember ever being like super. This I'm not sad or anything, but just shattered more so because it's looking less and less likely by the day that we're going to win a premiership this year. So I wanted more than anything for him to be able to be there for that. But nevertheless, that's sport, isn't it? We don't always get to go out the way we want to go out, or very rarely. So
yeah.
I was nice enough, Jack. I wasn't going to steal that announcement from you this week.
You're lucky. Oh, goodness gracious.
How are you feeling, Ciaran? Didn't Josh Gibson retire today?
He did.
Overshadowed?
It was overshadowed, but I think he's going to be overshadowed anyway because Luke Hodge is retiring from Hawthorn. So it's been a season long coming. Like, since he injured himself in round 12, I've been like, yeah, he's done. Like, don't.
He's not going to get another
he's not going to get that's the only sad thing is that he's not going to get another run out or another AFL game. I think everything he's mentioned in interviews so far has been positive, and it seems like he had already understood the fact that he was never going to play another AFL game again, and he's known that fact for a little while. So it's a sad thing, and he was a fantastic player and has been a fantastic player for our club. I think he played like 68 games for North Melbourne and another 180 for us at Hawthorn. So he's been a fantastic champion of our club, and he won 2 best and fairest within 2 of our premiership years, which is
it's pretty special.
Which is pretty special for him. So he's going to go out a hero to our club. So all the best to him. But he got a bit overshadowed today, sadly.
He did. Yeah, it just sort of felt for him.
Could have scheduled that better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, what do you do? 2 champions of the. What a year of retirements from the AFL.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I don't think we're done yet. I do not think we're done yet.
No, there's probably a few to come. I mean, you've had a look at the list already. Rewalt, Mitchell, Priddis, Murphy, obviously, Gibson, Hodge. Who else have we got?
Watson.
Joe Watson, Matty Boyd. There's
it's a big year, big
champions. I saw a stat or something. There's like 24 All-Australians, over 3,000 games, 2 Brownlow medals, something ridiculous like that. So I think they were talking about it on the radio today that 2007 was probably the only other year that's gotten close to this, or it was probably the year that eclipsed this when Buckley, Rashudo, I think Hurd retired, Chris Grant, Fraser Gehrig. There was a heap of players that bowed out that year. Luke Darcy was one as well. So, it's crazy. Like you think about all the champions going out of the game. The players retire every year, but this year seems more so like a lot of the real champs of the game are sort of taking. Oh, Stevie J is another one who's bowing out this year.
Yep.
So,
I think Stevie J's is a lot sadder than compared to the rest of them.
Why so?
I think I read his not sadder for the terms of us, but I feel like all of the other retirees in their interviews and articles have stated that they understand it's their time and they still love the game and they're still big. But Stevie J's, all of the interviews I've read about him and his retirement, just seems like he's fallen out of love with the game. Like he's just lost that fire and passion that he previously had, which
Probably what happens when you go play for a dud football team up in West Sydney. Nevertheless. Gents, what were our highlights from the weekend?
An obvious highlight for me was the Brisbane Lions beating the Gold Coast Suns in the Q Clash. The Suns obviously got off to a good start, and the Lions reeled them in. But another highlight from the weekend was Sally Pearson winning in the 110-metre hurdles in the World Championships. She's been like injury-ridden the last couple of years, so to see her come back and win was pretty special.
So Ciaran steals my thunder last week with Matthew Boyd, and you steal my highlight this week.
Sorry, Jack.
Ash takes two highlights and
I'm getting
one.
smashed.
Yeah.
Ciaran, what was yours?
I had a great day of football on Sunday. I drove up and watched St Kilda Melbourne, and then Hawthorn beat the North Melbourne. And I was barracking for Melbourne in that game because I desperately need St Kilda to finish lower than Hawthorn.
Mm-hmm.
And then also something I'll talk about a bit later, but the Dota 2 World Championships finished up, and it was great.
Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was another episode of Grandstand Gurus.
Jack, what was your highlights, bud?
My highlight was the Sally Pearson win. Like Ash said, a great comeback story, an underdog story at the World Championships to come back from the significant injuries that she had and being told that she couldn't do it and she wasn't going to do it and there was no chance
as well.
So missing the Olympics, and all of that. So for her to come back and win that was pretty special effort, and she's always carried herself really well. She's had some things in her career go, be little, funny little things here and there happen, but for the most part, she's always been a fantastic athlete, and she'll go down now as one of the great Australian, athletes ever to compete, and just heart of the line, that kind of thing, and that'll lead us into my topic for this week, and the way I guess she carries herself, and the way she's carried herself since that, and how hard she's worked, and how much the Australian public love her, and it sort of got me thinking about how Australian athletes are viewed now in 2017 by the rest of the world compared to how they might have used to be viewed by the rest of the world. And if you think about, some of the guys getting around in the international circuit at the moment, you've got guys like, the swimmers, not quite the caliber or character of past years with Ian Thorpe and some of these guys who used to get around, Magnussen and who's the young fellow who won the gold last year?
Can't remember.
He called out the Chinese guy, and then you've got a couple of fellas kicking around on the
Matt
tennis.
Horton, who called out?
Yeah, Mac Horton. Yep. So not
like
the
that.
most. Yeah, but I'm talking...
Especially coming off last week when you were talking about all the drug cheats.
I'm not talking about how I view him. I'm talking about how the rest of the world views them.
Okay.
So, not a super sportsman-like... And I'm not an athlete either, so you don't need to...
I think you are, Jack.
Yeah.
You're wrong then. And then, so you've got, Mac Horton and Magnussen and these guys who haven't really... who've said things and been, made to look a fool. And then you've got, a couple of dudes kicking around on the tennis tour in Bernard Tomic and Nick Kyrgios, who are just looked at by the Australian public and the rest of the world as absolute clowns. And then, there's a couple of golfers getting around who haven't got the best reputation. There's the Australian cricket team probably don't have the reputation that they used to. There's always a lot of controversy every time there's a tour around, stuff going on, sledging and unsportsmanlike behaviour and things like that. And I just feel like we used to be viewed as, sportsmanlike, knockabout, underdogs, tough, strong. That was sort of, you think of like an Aussie athlete, wearing the green and gold, representing the country. That's sort of the mindset that you would have. And I don't think that that's the case these days. I feel like now these days we're probably viewed as maybe a bit whingers, a bit cocky. There's some guys getting around who are giving our country and our athletes bad name. So I wanted to throw it to you guys and what do you expect? What do you want from an Aussie sports person representing our country? How would you like them to be? How would you like us to be viewed as a sporting nation by the rest of the world?
I just want them to be proud to be representing their country and to be performing at the best they possibly can at that time. Anything else is really a cherry on top, but obviously it's a bit harder nowadays. There seems to be a lot more scrutiny with social media and everything. There's a lot more spotlight on the athletes, so it's tougher than it was like even 10 years ago, I think.
Do you
I
think?
guess. Sorry.
There you go.
I guess my point of view is because I'm an adopter. I got a piece of paper that said I was an Australian, and I'm proud to be an Australian. But for athletes now, I feel like as a country we've gone through a change in our athletes, because there was always that period where everybody, it was from the international point of view, it was, oh, they're laid back Aussies, they're really great swimmers, they're laid back, they're good sportsmen, they're top like underdogs, they're always there. I think it's about time, and this is probably going to go the wrong way, but I think it's about time that we've had some stars that show you a bit of fire, a bit of personality almost in sport, I guess. And I think, honestly, if Nick Kyrgios dialed it back like a lot, I would be able to get behind him. I can see in that guy, I can see somebody I would love to support.
If you dialed it off, you think
if he was just not a
flog?
bit of an idiot. Flog, thank you. You found the PG version of the word I was looking for.
He's a dead set flog.
He's a flog. And if he wasn't a flog, I could get behind him as a player because I like that personality. I like that. I do like it a bit cocky because that's just something fun about it. But
Yeah, I remember when he first broke onto the scene, and it was sort of that big Wimbledon where he went on a massive run that first time.
Yeah,
he was
beat Nadal
it's
and that,
super likable, but sort of
Yeah.
obviously turned a corner since then.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. So I'm a bit confused by your messaging, Ciaran, because if you say that you like having a bit of personality and a bit of a different sort of flair, and then you say that you can't get behind Kyrgios because he's a flog.
I like personality and flair, but I don't like to the point where you're just doing
You're a
some
frog.
really terrible
So there's a
things.
line. Yeah, there's a line.
There's
Okay.
a line where I want it. Like You've got to know where you can step on that line. You don't go over the line. Like some of his anger and his destroying rackets and
He's a
yelling at
goose.
people.
He's a goose.
Yeah. Just ruins him as a personality for me, but I would love more people to step up and be that kind of
Yeah.
person in sport.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, from my point of view, I agree with sort of almost both your sentiments that I think you can have that sort of that flair and that charisma, which I think is lost in a lot of sports these days. A lot of athletes are quite vanilla. And you want them to have a good worth. What I want from my athletes is that they compete to the best of their ability, they work hard, and they don't give up. And if they have a great personality, that's a cherry on top. But I want them to compete fairly and hard first and foremost, because that's what they're there for, right? They're there to compete to the best of their ability and be fair. And I think in recent years, and I can sometimes, in the heat of the battle, especially like something like the cricket, when the sledging's going on and they're mucking around with DRS and there's umpiring decisions and there's a little bit of scuttlebutt here and there and some unsportsmanlike behaviour. In the heat of the moment, I'll always back the green and gold. But in hindsight, you look back on it and you go, how do we want to be viewed as a sporting nation? Do we just don't care? Do we just want to win? Is that what we're about? Or do we want to be known as the good sportsman, like what we used to be sort of viewed as, is the hardworking, the underdogs, the good side. We've always been viewed in that light for the most part, and I feel like in recent times less so.
My point is, I think it's part of the reason I fell in love with AFL since moving here. That one of the most
superior sport to soccer.
It's a pretty great sport. I'll give it that. But one of the most unique things about the sport is you can sit there and you watch a full game of AFL where two teams go to absolute war. They tackle, they go full in, they're not holding back. The moment that siren rings, they start chatting to each other like they're mates. Like they start actually having a chat and shake hands, and you see different members of the opposition team like coming together and just talking for a couple minutes after the game. Like it's not. It's like that switch of that's the kind of thing I love about the AFL is that there's a moment of mateship almost where, yep, we both played and we both put everything into it. But we can now... There is going to be friends across both teams, and they are going to be able to put a difference as what happened in the game and just talk.
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree with that. So, who would you say who's kicking around at the moment for, Australia, who you think set a good example for the rest of our sporting, I guess, heroes, if you want to call them that? Who do you think at the moment kicking around leads by example?
Robert Whittaker.
Yes. Hang on, yeah, wouldn't even have thought of him.
No,
Yep.
wouldn't even thought of Robert Whittaker.
Yep.
Robert Whittaker is an up-and-coming talent. He's a young kid, but he is exactly what I want as an Australian.
Yeah.
Like, I want that kind of fire, but he's still a top bloke. Like, he's still... You could see yourself cracking open a beer with Robert Whittaker. He's just that true blue Australian. He's got the freaking Southern Cross tattoo on his,
on his chest.
Like... You can't get more Australian than that, and he's just fantastic. He's a top bloke, and he isn't a bad sportsman. He's just everything you admire about an athlete is Robert Whittaker. So
yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Absolutely, he's fantastic. Yeah, he's just about you're right. He's just about the perfect example of what you can be: fair, hardworking, gutsy, never say die. And then have a laugh and pretty knockabout bloke as well after getting his face punched in for 25 minutes. So good call. Ash, what about yourself?
The first person I thought of was Tim Cahill. I mean, so he's a pretty likable guy and never give up, always playing to the last minute.
Yeah.
Has Tim Cahill got a bit vanilla? I think he's got super vanilla in the last couple years.
Yeah, maybe a little bit since he's come back, but...
Is he still kicking around for the City?
He's playing for Melbourne City.
I think he's playing
cool
this season, so be good to see him.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing you reminded me to bring up is I think the Socceroos always carry themselves with a fantastic decorum. I only watch football or soccer when it's the Socceroos, if it's like the World Cup or the Asia Champions or something like that, and I just find that they always just carry themselves really well. They don't dive. They play hard. They're good sportsmen. They don't muck around. They don't flail and fall over like half the blood. I think a couple of years ago, it might have been a World Cup qualifier or something. They played like Iraq or something here.
Yeah.
And they were just falling over and the tiniest little things and do you remember that game and the guys on the stretcher and they stretcher him off and spray him with like the magic spray and then he stands up? I'm like, you're kidding, aren't you? And you never see the Socceroos do that stuff. They play hard, they don't dive, if they get kicked they'll go down, but they don't feign for free kicks, which I find really respectable about the Socceroos. Absolutely. One guy who I think carries himself fantastically well, represents our country in a great way, is Dan Ricciardo.
Perfect.
He's very much in the vein of Robert Whittaker. Good guy, knockabout bloke, great sportsman, but works hard, never say die, and not like. And some of those Formula One drivers are what I tell you what, if they're not some of the biggest wankers on the face of the planet. That bloody Sebastian Vettel, I tell you what. But he just carries himself, doing shoeies up on the bloody podium and stuff like that. He's just a real knockabout bloke, good sportsman, and
he's brought that back. He's brought it to the mainstream.
Yes, he's brought the shoey back, or he's brought it out, I guess. But so I think those are some three really great. Some really great examples of what how an Australian sportsman should carry themselves. Let us know. Tweet at us at ExplosionPod. Send us an email, gurus@explosionnetwork.com. Let us know who you think is a great Australian sportsman and who you would like to see a little bit more of. Moving right along. Ashery.
All right.
You got some of the world game for us.
Some of the world game. Yes, so I wanted to talk about a story that sort of broke a couple of weeks ago. It's sort of come to a head. Well, it's finally resolved itself pretty much. That's the Neymar transfer. So
Yes.
he was playing for Barcelona, massive team in the La Liga, pretty much one of the most successful teams of all time. And he got Paris Saint-Germain or PSG bought him out. Bought him out. Like, they didn't get a transfer. They matched his transfer clause. So
Right.
he went to them for
It's often
£200
a
million.
stupid number.
£200 million, which is a world record fee. Last year, Paul Pogba went to Manchester United for 89 million, which was the last record. So more than doubled it,
Gee whiz.
which is mental. So,
Is he that good?
I mean, he's pretty good, but not 200 million good.
Is he like Messi good, or is he?
Well,
like,
He's supposed to be the next.
he's supposed to be the
isn't
next
he?
Messi, yeah. So he,
Okay, so he's quite young.
Messi and Luis Suarez formed like the attacking forward line for Barcelona, which was pretty potent. So he's yeah, it's a pretty incredible situation. I just want to know what you guys think, because this is the guy who Brazil held their hopes on when they were playing the last World Cup. He was going to be the one who delivered them the World Cup, and that unfortunately went
pantsed.
down pretty bad when he broke his vertebrae in the quarterfinal. So
Yeah.
I think in these situations, especially with football, it's very 9 times out of 10 trades like these just don't work. 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I remember the
The-
Torres one when Torres went
The
to
Torres, that was the first one that comes to mind. When Torres first went to Liverpool, it was terrible. Like, he did not play well, and then he went to Chelsea, and he had a weird kind of okay, not okay season. And same with when David Beckham moved. When David Beckham went to Real Madrid, he did nothing at Real Madrid.
Yeah.
It was not the same David Beckham. I think the only one that I see, and I'm always like, yeah, okay, that's fair enough. He did make it worth the move, was Cristiano Ronaldo.
yeah,
Just because he's a class act on the field. And he's been the exact same as he was at Man U, was the same at Real Madrid for them. So I don't think they work. Often 9 times out of 10, there's almost too much pressure put on these players, and to move from one team, one location, with a different set of coaching staff, different set of players, probably different play style.
yeah,
Go somewhere else, like go there, and then immediately as soon as you start playing, you have the same level of pressure you had at your last team, where
Even
you
more,
built
probably.
up your rapport, like you're back and forth with the team, and you built
Yeah.
up your skill level,
Combinations and stuff like that.
accommodations, everything. You built that up over a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you have to do all of that within the span of a couple of months. I just don't think it's a good situation for any player to put themselves in, especially when that kind of money's on the table.
Yeah, it seems like quite a big risk for a club like that to put that kind of money. I mean, I know there's no cap or anything like that, so it's really, I mean, it's just a lot of money. Like, that's a lot of money
it is.
to just throw down for one guy who's, how old is he?
It's 25.
And would you say he's proven player, or is he still? Or is people still waiting? Is he like one of those we're waiting for him to click and have his potential?
No,
or-
he's definitely in like the top 10 probably players in the world, I would imagine.
yeah,
Yeah, the pressure's also coming in from Brazil because they haven't had a golden boot like a Balloon d'Or, I think it's called, like the best player in the world award winner for like a decade. And like
Yeah, right.
obviously football is huge in Brazil, so he's
Massive.
like the golden child, so yeah,
Well, they had that period of
pressure on him
time
is
where they
massive.
had-
Yeah, they had Rivaldo, Ronaldo, they had Ronaldinho and Kaká, like winning almost for like every other year. So
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say not having a real in-depth knowledge of these kinds of things, but generally, big money moves like this don't work out. Like, as far as what I can tell from soccer, other sports around the world, they generally do. Like, if you think about the big money moves in basketball, seem to always work out for the most part.
no, I wouldn't say that. There's a lot of big
I wouldn't
money
say for
moves that-
basketball.
a lot of big money moves fall flat as well.
Give me some examples. Because I mean, the one I think of is obviously, what's his name? LeBron. I mean, he's sort of gone to Miami and won championships,
That's
and
true.
now he's back at playing in championships for Cleveland again, and that kind of thing. Like, I don't know, he hasn't won. He's won one at Cleveland, hasn't he?
Yes, he
Yeah,
won.
yeah,
last-
they won.
Yeah. So that's.
won
I mean,
last
not
year.
again. Not having a. When I think of other sports who do similar things, they seem to work out okay. But when I hear about them for soccer, it doesn't seem to. It always seems to be a bust.
I think soccer everywhere, every other sport except for maybe NBA, every other sport has a fairly reasonable ceiling for the money that gets thrown around. Mm-hmm. Soccer's ceiling for their money is ridiculous.
Well, it just got smashed, didn't it?
It did just get smashed, but the amount of money that, like, the soccer, especially Premier League teams, the La Liga teams, the amount of money they can throw around, even on their lower tier players, is still ridiculous. On that scale, is still stupid. And players move so often in football in all leagues. Like, it's not the same as in AFL where there's a couple huge moves every year, and sometimes there's not many big trades or big moves. In Premier League, like, they have multiple trade periods throughout the year. Like, they have the before the season, and they have the January-February trade period. Like, imagine that in AFL. Imagine having a trade period halfway through the season.
Yeah, it'd be chaos.
Yeah, it's actually been interesting because a lot of the big clubs in the Premier League haven't really been able to get many players because the prices have been so inflated because of just all the money. I mean, Liverpool got 3 players so far this transfer season. I think Tottenham haven't gotten a new player at all. So it's pretty crazy with all the money in football at the moment.
No doubt at all.
Yeah. The other reason Neymar mentioned he wanted to move is he wanted to be the main man. So
that's the thing. I think in Barcelona, it's kind of a weird. Like, Barcelona had that weird point where their whole team was just nuts. Was just amazing and all-stars, and everybody thinks, okay, you'd be so happy to be an all-star, but then you have personalities and people that do want to step out and be the next big player, and you're not going to get that within a team like Barcelona because they've already got so many big players and so many big names.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. What do you think's going to happen, Ash? Do you think he's going to go bust, or?
I think he'll play. I think PSG will go good.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll prove without that supply that he was getting at Barcelona and being able to give it when he's in trouble, give it to a Messi or a Suarez to make him his passes look better. Whether
that's the other big thing as well. Like, it's all well and good to be a great player, but when you go to a team and you don't have great players around you, and it happens all the time at AFL, big name player goes to a lower level club and not quite the same player because they don't have the quality around them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you can hit a target, but if they're not going to do anything with it, what's the point?
My biggest point so far is Buddy Franklin. I don't think he's earned the money that Sydney Swans spent on him at all. On that type of money and that type of deal they threw at him, that should almost be close to buying yourself a premiership.
They came
you can't
close.
look at it like that though. Yeah, they can't. They've played in 2. They've lost 2 grand finals. I mean, it's hard to sort of say that about. There's been ones in the past that haven't worked. People. When you look at the Tom Boyd thing, that obviously worked. I mean, he just about won the grand final for us off his own boot.
How's he doing this season?
He's struggling. He's got his own personal things. Don't smile. It's not funny.
I forgot about that. I'm sorry.
Jesus, you jerk. That one obviously paid off. He won us a flag just about off his own boot with that. He played a fantastic month of football, and people were saying the year before that there was the worst deal ever in the history of the AFL. And you might look at that and go, okay, well, it very well could have been, but we won a grand final, so it's just about paid for itself. Buddy Franklin, on the other hand, has gotten, I wouldn't say he's gotten them because they're a quality team as well, but, he's won, I think he's won a Coleman medal being there, or he's come close. He's kicked, over 50 goals every year that he's been there. He's, he's Buddy Franklin. I mean, he's an out-and-out star. He's one of the greatest athletes to ever play AFL, and he's won games off his own boot. So,
he's probably raised the profile in New South Wales of AFL as well.
Absolutely, most definitely. And so, I mean, if you look at the success of a trade purely on whether you win a grand final, then how many trades in the history of AFL have been fails? Probably most of them. But if you look at it as, and I'm not talking like trade, trade a player in, trade a player out. I'm talking big name trades like your Dangerfield, your Chris Judd. I mean, would you say Chris Judd was a fail of a trade? Probably. I mean, you probably could, considering
you could, but I think it was good for the development of that team.
I mean, he won a grand final. He won a Brownlow medal at Carlton. He won a grand final at West Coast.
Obviously, didn't get relevant.
That. Carlton, yeah, no doubt. Yeah, absolutely. You could look at that as a success of that. You could look at the Brownlow medal as a success of that. You could look at the development of the players around him as a success of that. You could look at, a deal like the Dangerfield one. If Geelong don't win a flag, is that a failure? I mean, he's brought so much to that club in the way of a media exposure and new members, and he's won a Brownlow medal and those types of things. Would you look at that as a failure if they don't win a flag in his time there? So I think it's all relative.
That topic about Dangerfield, I'd like to go back to at some time, because I almost feel like Geelong's in a worse position now than they were before he arrived.
Really?
Yes.
As in they're too reliant on him?
Yes. I feel like the rest of their team have not stepped up because they have Dangerfield. And I'd like to go in at that at a later show, just to have a deep discussion about that. Just especially based on the game 2 weeks ago when he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And Joel Selwood got injured pretty early.
Yeah.
That was abysmal. That was not good.
Yeah, they were pretty poor that game. We can revisit that one. We can do it now if you want.
If you want to quickly. Like, what do you guys think? Because looking at those games, that team, and if you watch back there, other than, say, a handful of players, who can you... other than, say, probably 8 or 9 players I can think of off the top of my head, who can you name from that team that you're like, they're vital. They're absolutely vital to that team's success?
Harry Taylor... Tom Hawkins.
I would list him in like I'd list the Harry Taylors, the
Tom Hawkins.
Like you got Zach Smith. I really like Zach Smith in that team. Dangerfield, Selwood, Tom Hawkins. Who was the guy? Mitch Duncan. Who was the one they just picked up from Adelaide last year, or is it? It wasn't. Adelaide.
You mean Scott Selwood? From
Not
West
Scott.
Coast?
No.
Scott. I think Scott's got another year to get into the side, but like to get a lot better.
I mean, they're a very good team.
Tui. Zach Tui.
He came from Carlton. Yeah,
he came from Carlton. I think Tui's been playing really well for them, but I just think they're too focused on Dangerfield as a team.
It's one of those ones. You have two such high caliber players at the top. It sort of it does create a gulf almost in between the next 5. So when you take those two out, because they win so much of their own ball, because they're so influential, other players don't get to get the ball as much and influence games as much because they don't have to. So then when Dangerfield and Selwood all of a sudden aren't in the team, they're not used to it. That team dynamic is different because they do rely on those guys. So it's you almost create a rod for your own back with that kind of thing. It's great, obviously, having these superstars in your team, but what happens when you lose them are they too much of a liability then? So it's definitely an interesting concept.
Yeah, I agree. It's very easy to rest on your laurels when you've got guys like Dangerfield and Selwood running around.
Most definitely.
I've seen Dangerfield in moments this year, like literally play football by himself.
Yes.
Literally handballs the ball and goes and grabs it himself. It's just one of those things.
To be fair, it wouldn't be the first time a significant player has gone down in a team and it's significantly affected the team structure. I remember in 2003 when Chris Grant did his knee and we won the wooden spoon that year. Same thing in 2005. When was it? 2004-05 when Luke Darcy did his knees. Both those years. We really struggled those years. So it happens. There's always. You think Nat Fyfe when he broke his leg. Fremantle really struggled without him. So it's sort of, it's a double-edged sword having players of that caliber in your team. You almost want that Hawthorn model, the Bulldogs model, where you don't rely on one or two. You've got a really even spread across the team, rather than your Geelong model where you've got two out-and-out superstars who can win you a game off their own boot. But if they're not there or they have a down game, you're in a bit of trouble.
Even speaking of Hawthorn, like we had our terrible point of this season was when we had most of our stars.
Yes.
When most of our players were in, we had a bad time. As soon as people started getting injured, and Clarkson like, you know what? I'm just going to put youngsters in, and we're just going to see what happens. And that's when our season turned around. It was interesting to see what happened there.
Most definitely. All right, Ciaran. You want to talk esports?
Kind of. I'll get into esports later.
Okay.
I'll make you. I want to play a game first with you.
Oh,
guys.
good.
Bit of a game. I've got a list of names here. I want you to tell me what sport they were a world champion of.
So you're just going to tell us the person. Okay.
Person.
I'm going to tell you the person the name and see if by only name you know what sport they did.
Cool.
Top one is Jason English.
Was he a shooter?
Ash?
Darts?
No, he was cycling. He was a world champion in cycling for
Okay.
several years running.
Okay.
Jessica Fox.
Oh, she's the kayak or
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's the kayak. You got it right. Point to Ashley.
Well done, Ash.
Caroline Buchanan.
Caroline Buchanan. She a shooter?
No. I'm not shooting very straight here, Jack.
heptathlon or something athletics.
No. She's a BMX world champion.
Okay.
We got Alex Pullen.
Tug of war.
Tug of war.
Weightlifting.
We're going to go a couple more. So he's a snowboarder. He's
Okay.
a snowboarding world champion.
Yeah.
Jason Crump.
No idea.
No idea.
He's a
He
shooter.
is one of the most legendary speedway riders in the history of that sport.
All right. Okay.
Speedway is a crazy sport. I want to talk about it one day. It's one
Is
of
that
my
the
favorite.
thing on the Louvre thing?
No. So
that's the one with the
Speedway is a
parachutes?
sport. No, Speedway is a sport where it's on a circular track. So it's on a circular track. They've done it at Etihad once a year. They hold Grand Prix here.
Oh, is that the one with the spoilers or the?
No, that's that's a different kind of speedway. Fuck. This is motorbikes, and they don't have any brakes, and they go almost as fast as the Formula One car.
Sounds safe.
It's
Crazy.
It's a crazy sport, and I love it. So he's one of the greatest riders of all time. And then the last two, I've got Anathan Pham and Damien Chock. You're gonna have one of these because I gave you a.
Equestrian. Oh no,
Equestrian.
Dota.
Dota, thank you. I
Dota.
gave you that one. So both those players are Australian international Dota players. For all you esports fans out there, and I know you're there, I'm going to tell you something you already know. Dota 2 had its world champions this year. The prize pool was $24 million.
Crazy.
Is that like
$24
the top?
million.
Or
That was
split?
that was like the whole prize pool. So
Okay.
the winner won 10.
Oh, jeez, not worth it.
Yeah, not worth it, man. $10 million to play a video game. So, on the front page of a lot of papers this week was a news story that I posted to you guys about Damien Chook, who's KPI. He came second. So, his team, Newbie, won $4 million. That's not important. That's the end game. That's what's happened to him. What I want to talk about, and it's why I listed those things. What I want to talk about is sports in getting professional in a sport that isn't mainstream in this country. And the difficulties people have doing that. Both Anathan Pham, who I'm just going to call Anna from now on because that's his freaking username, and KPI, they both had to leave Australia and move to China to get noticed. So Anna dropped out of high school when he was 16, moved to China on his own to get to a point where he could be a professional Dota 2 player. Because he was just that good, and now he is. Anna's total earnings are $680,000 by himself.
Jesus.
And then KPI's earnings is $1.6 million by himself, and they've only been on the scene for like the last year or two. So
Unreal.
the things they've had to do as players, and the people here that I've listed that are all world champions of their sports, but people don't know them. People don't know them unless they are in those circles. How hard it is. Because if you think about it, for AFL to move to the AFL or to move into cricket, there are obvious avenues for somebody to go down.
Yeah.
What do you guys think could be done? Like, not better, but how do you think it has affected players to actually have to do things off their own back without a support system to move through? Like, you know how in AFL you've got the VFL you can go to. You move up through playing juniors, and then you can go to like the Murray Bush Rangers and that kind of league, and then you move forward and you can get drafted. To play these sports, there's no draft. There's no
obvious
anything.
entry.
There's no obvious entry. Is it fair to say? I think there was a big article last year for the Olympics where the shooters and everything of our Olympic team had to find their own sponsors, and it was ridiculously hard for them to find their own sponsors.
Same thing happened to, speaking of Sally Pearson earlier, same thing happened to her a while back. She couldn't get a sponsor. She was a world champion. I mean, it's hard. It's all about exposure, right? And it's the same reason why, unfortunately, women's sports don't get as much coverage and funding, and that is that you've got to have that. So there's got to be an interest there, right? There's got to be the general public has to want to watch the sport. If you've got a viewership, a really strong hardcore viewership, and it can get exposure, then you're going to have funding. But you hear about stories about that all the time, is that these young, like athletics in Australia has pretty good funding, so does, swimming and stuff. But your lesser known sports have next to none, like you said, like, clay shooting, archery, some of these other ones have got next to nothing as far as support. They don't get the exposure as at that base level because there's no interest in it.
There's no interest in it, and
the interest around it comes every 4 years when the Olympics pops around.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's forgotten about it after the month.
Yeah.
And it's all down to what people find interesting. Or Australian mainstream sports are, depending where you grow up. Because if you live in Victoria, the mainstream sport is pretty much AFL. AFL. Yep. I'm guessing if you live in Queensland or New South Wales, the mainstream sport is rugby or their
rugby
football.
league.
Rugby league. It's the same thing. Oh, I'm not even...
Super League. It's called Super League.
Is it called Super League?
No, that's in
rugby. Just you play with the same ball.
It's all the same thing.
Just buddy, just tweet at me if you're angry. I know you are.
Email us at explosionetwork.com.
Explosion Network. Thank you very much. But do you think it would be a terrible thing if some of these more minor sports were introduced more regularly at school level or for people younger?
Possibly. I mean,
I'm not saying instead of PE, let the kids go play Dota 2. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea. But
it's a very bad idea.
That is, well, it's not a bad idea, but you can do that in your own time. Look, tweet at your boy Ringo if you want to learn. I'll teach you. But should there be more sports introduced at that early level of, even if it's like a thing where schools can offer options of sports at some point? I don't know. It's hard to do some of these sports.
Yeah, it's so hard to try and get every code is trying to get kids in at grassroots level.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a competition to get people to participate. So it's hard. It's definitely something that's difficult to get. And to find people who have that passion for that.
Exactly, and it disappoints me that communities around those sports are finding it so hard to grow. As a part of the esports community, I know it's super hard, and it makes me happy to see that actual sports organisations are picking up players. Like I just saw in the news, Melbourne City, they just picked up a player. They just picked up an esports player. They picked up it is a FIFA player, but they have just added a FIFA player to their salary. There was the Adelaide Kruse picked up a Melbourne team and started to do that for esports. Overwatch was on the national TV. Was now on national television, like on, I think it was like one of the Prime networks, like 7 Mate or 7-2.
Yeah, right. Bring it back. PSG have a League of Legends team.
PSG have a League of Legends team.
Yeah, they do.
There is this thing where there is money involved and people can get there, but one day there's going to be... Like, they're even talking about putting esports in the Olympics.
Yeah, because it's going to be part of the Asian. It is going to be part of the Asian Games, I think.
I believe so. I believe esports is going to be
Which is
part.
like the second biggest event in the world, apparently.
I guess it maybe time. I mean, funding is always getting more and more. There's always more people. The population's constantly growing. There's, the more people there are, the more chance there is they're going to have an interest in some of the more obscure sports. So, esports. I mean, if you think about it, when we were all a kid, Ash, you and I, when we were kids, however long, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, Ciaran, when you were a kid, like 16 months ago,
yeah,
it was, you would say, like, you would think in your head, like, what I want to do for a job when I grow up. Well, I want to play video games for my job. Like, it's just something, as a kid, that's the dream, right? You want to get paid to play video games. Now it is a reality.
It's a thing.
Like 20 years later, it is a reality that you could play video games as your job if you're good enough at it and you work hard enough at it.
It's a little bit more hardcore than we'd hoped, but
yeah, of course, no
extreme,
doubt. But still, it's a reality now. Like, there's actually people doing it. So I guess maybe in time, speedway and clay shooting and these things will have more and more funding and exposure because there'll be more and more people, and who knows, they might, as television rights and things expand, there'll be an extra channel, there'll be ESPN, there'll be Fox Sports 7, 8, 9, 10, and ESPN 10,
ESPN
12,
the
13,
Ocho.
14. The Ocho, yeah. We'll have a dodgeball league. We'll have a dodgeball league. So I could see it being a reality, but I think it's just time, and I think they need to have the right kind of vision and marketing, and it's almost like, and esports is probably lightning in a bottle kind of thing, that they sort of, it was like the right time and it just clicked, and then all of a sudden it went bang, and obviously it's a little bit different. A lot of these, like, esports is a new sport, like Dota and League of Legends and these things are new to the world. Like, they were only created a few years ago. So archery and things like that have been around for hundreds of years, and not. So there's probably, actually, I'll change my answer. There's probably no chance that these more obscure sports are going to be widely known. They've had long enough, but you never know.
I just think what I'll do for all our listeners, please tweet at me at your boy Ringo. Tell me, do you like what peculiar or just off the beaten path sports do you watch? And if you do ever see a random sport on TV, give it 5 minutes of your time. You might end up enjoying it. You'll definitely enjoy Dota 2 if you see that on TV. I can guarantee it.
Nerd.
I mentioned that, what was it? I saw recently they're doing that. They want to do a city-based esports teams, like in Australia with the elite.
Yeah,
elite
like
series.
they want to do city-based esports teams, and Melbourne's getting its first official esports bar with full functionality for people to actually play games and stuff at the bar. So.
No, but they've planned this, and they've got these city-based teams, and they are the worst names.
Oh, they are horrible.
That list? Terrible.
Oh, God.
Sydney
God.
Blue
Rattle off.
Surge. Sydney Obsidian. Melbourne Metatic. Melbourne Rebolts. Brisbane Deceptors. Adelaide Photonics. And Perth
terrible.
Subnets.
Oh my God, that's
Perth
horrible.
Subnets?
The Metatax, I can get behind that, but that is about the only one.
Could you give them any nerdier names to scare off the normies?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
They look like Big Bash logos as well.
Yeah.
But with terrible names.
Yeah, it's pretty woeful. That's
killing
bad
me, Australia.
marketing.
You're
It
really
is.
killing me.
It really is. Whoever thought that up, they should be fired.
Yeah.
Anyway, very good. Gentlemen, what are we looking forward to this weekend?
I'm looking forward to the Sports Entertainment SummerSlam. I'm not mentioning what kind of sport that is, but it's going to be on Sunday.
We don't mention
Sunday
that
our
sport on
time,
this.
and it's going to be fantastic.
Until you get one of the Hardy brothers on this podcast, you're not allowed to mention that sport
I will
anymore.
tweet at them every day for the rest of.
Are the Hardy Boys competing at that event?
They are indeed. They are indeed.
Who are they facing?
I think the Revival. No, the Revival's injured. I don't know who they're facing. They'll be facing somebody though. They are feuding.
Who's your tip for the championship in that sport that we're not allowed to talk about?
In that sport,
That universal championship for that sport. We're not allowed
So
to talk
the
about.
Universal Championship, I want to go with Samoa Joe or Braun Strowman. If you've not watched wrestling, you need to watch Braun Strowman because he's amazing. He is the coolest. Like, he's just amazing. Just go check out Braun Strowman. He's awesome.
Interesting.
Watch wrestling. Do it.
Wrestling.
And NXT. Watch NXT.
Wrestling.
Adam Cole, baby. It's going to be on NXT on Saturday. It's going to be great.
I wouldn't so much say I'm looking forward to it as I'm morbidly curious to see the Wallabies play the All Blacks this weekend in the first Bledisloe Cup match. I have a feeling it's going to be a train wreck, but you never know.
Normally
I'm pretty sure the All Blacks' first choice fly half is out. So
now is this league?
This is rugby union.
Oh, for God's sake!
This is the
Super
15.
League?
15
So this is
man
rugby.
sport.
So this is
Yeah.
rugby.
So this is proper rugby.
This is the originated in rugby in England. Well, I guess they both originated in England.
Sort yourself out, sport
Originated
of
right
rugby.
away. I
Work
was
out
born.
what you want to be.
Well,
You have too
Union's
many-
the real one.
You have
Union's
too
the
many-
real-
Who's the one that All Blacks are good at?
There's too
Yeah.
many iterations. It's not. I don't appreciate it.
Also, actually, I'm looking forward to Brisbane Lions winning against Melbourne this week because Melbourne's going to bottle it because they always do.
Oh,
They always win they win a hard game and then they lose a super easy one.
Is that here or is that
It's at
is
the
that in
MCG.
Melbourne or Brisbane?
It's the MCG.
Oh God, come on, Ash, do it for me.
Do it, Lions.
Come on.
Do it.
I
Don't do it.
I hold out
Doggies
hope.
will get in.
I don't even know what I'm looking forward to anymore. To be perfectly honest, we're playing Port Adelaide in Ballarat. Great.
Are you driving to Ballarat?
I'm not driving to Ballarat
Why not? It's such a fun drive.
because I've got my partner's away for the weekend, so I've got to look after my son, so I can't really do that unfortunately. But I probably wouldn't have gone anyway because
It's too cold down there.
yeah, it's gonna be like 3 degrees and whatever. And if we lose this, we're out. Like, we will not make the finals if we lose this game. I think it could potentially be mathematically impossible, depending on other results.
It's still mathematically possible for Hawthorn to make the finals. So
Yeah, but they have to win both games. If we
have to win both games.
and
We can
everyone
beat you
and
lot.
everyone above you needs to lose both their games because you're a game and a half behind.
the people just above us need to lose one each. Like Essendon needs to lose one, St Kilda needs to lose one, and then West Coast and you need to lose 2. Which
Yeah,
you
so
both
it's
can do, 'cause
not likely to go your way.
Well,
I believe it. I think it is. Looking at your matchups, like Doggies matchups and West Coast Eagles matchups, you both could easily lose both.
no offense.
No offense, but I think in the matchup scale of things, you could easily lose both. Which means that next Friday, Western Bulldogs versus Hawthorn could be really awesomely interesting.
It could be really awkward next week, though.
Yeah, it could be.
Who are they
could
playing?
be.
Hawthorn this week?
Well, this week Hawthorn has, I don't know. Give me a sec. Just elevator
Fake
music.
fan.
Elevator
fan.
music. I normally know. I just forget
You've
things.
been playing too many of those video games.
No, I do play a lot of video games.
How did you
Uh,
appreciate
esports.
the Dota write-up?
Oh, we got Carlton this week. And then you guys next week, which are both winnable games.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to enjoying the last 2 weeks of hopefully 6, but most like more. It could be the last 2 weeks of Bob Murphy's career. So I'm just going to enjoy it for what it is.
Imagine
Take
that.
it in.
That night is going to be both Bob Murphy and Luke Hodges last night.
Could be.
Potentially.
Yeah, could be. Hopefully not. Very good. Well, not very good. We don't. It's bad. Bad.
Grab the tissues quick, Jack.
It does. The end comes quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Grandstand Gurus, the #1 sports podcast on the Explosion Network. You can find all of our content over at www.explosionnetwork.com. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Kruse_mate. Ashley is at Ashley Hobley, ASHLEYHOBLEY. Ciaran is at your boy Ringo. Please jump onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review, jump over YouTube, give us a subscribe, give us a like. It is very much appreciated and it will keep the lights on. So remember, like, subscribe, share us with your friends and with your mother. Until next time, plat plat! keep on grandstanding.
This August on the Explosion Network. If you want more of this good stuff, check us out every week on podcast services and YouTube. Pleasure Explosion, the original Explosion pod, goes up every Monday. Our PlayStation podcast, Platinum Explosion, hits on Tuesdays, and we get into some sports discussion with Grandstand gurus each and every Thursday. Make sure to keep up with explosionnetwork.com for all the latest content, including weekly stream schedules, reviews and reacts, plus our Game of Thrones reaction show, South of King's Landing. Plat plat.